Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us here today. We are all excited to be here today to announce the formation of Game Change, the Patriots Anti-Violence Partnership. Joining me today are Robert Kraft, who needs no introduction, owner of the New England Patriots, and a driving force for how we got here today. Josh Kraft, head of the New England Patriots Charitable Foundation. Dan Leibovitz, Executive Director of the Center for the Study of Sport and Society at Northeastern University, which runs the Mentors in Violence Prevention Program. Deborah Robin, Executive Director of Jane Doe, Inc. Mary Dunn and Malcolm Astley, parents of Lauren Dunn Astley, who we lost far too young to relationship violence. Thank you all for being here today. Now, if there's one thing I've learned about Robert Kraft and his incredible team as we've worked together on this project, it's that they don't do anything halfway. They know about winning formulas, and they know how to get results. And this, I believe, will be a true game changer in the work to protect young people from violence, particularly violence involving relationships and domestic violence and sexual assault. Robert and Josh contacted us a few weeks ago with a clear mission. They wanted to develop a program, they said, to keep young people safe. And they wanted to do it in a way that would be thoughtful, innovative, and effective. And I think this program accomplishes all three. I want to thank Mr. Kraft and Josh for their partnership, their generosity, and their leadership. This program will make a difference in the lives of so many young people, so many families across this state, and it would not be possible without them. The $500,000 gift from the Patriots Foundation towards this Game Change program is just part of a much larger $1.5 million commitment to address domestic violence and sexual assault in Massachusetts. The rest of that gift will go toward a comprehensive training and community building initiative and direct support for advocates and leaders on the front lines combating domestic violence and sexual assault. Remember, I said the Kraft family doesn't do anything halfway, and for that, we are grateful. Let me tell you why I think today's program and this announcement is so important. 1 in 3 people has experienced physical, emotional, sexual, or verbal violence in a relationship. 1 in 3. Every 9 seconds in this country, a woman is assaulted or beaten, making domestic violence the leading cause of injury to women in America. The harm caused by that violence, both physical and psychological, can last for a lifetime. As I mentioned, we are joined here today by Mary Dunn and Malcolm Astley, who lost their daughter, Lauren, to a senseless act of relationship violence. Mary and Malcolm have committed their lives to preventing the kind of nightmare that they were forced to endure. And I want to thank them again for being here today. They are an inspiration to all of us. This is what this program and this effort is about. The goal of this program is to prevent tragedies like that happened to Lauren and her family, and to stop the violence that is happening in our homes, in our schools, and in our communities. We know the key to preventing violence is to intervening, to connecting with young people at an early age. The earlier we can educate young people about healthy relationships, the earlier we can build a sense of dignity and respect in how we treat one another. And I know that this will all go a long way to increasing the chance that we have of making a difference and reducing violence, teaching young people, giving them the skills and the power to engage in healthy relationships and healthy dynamics with one another. That's what this is about. That's why this Game Change program is about. This is why Game Change is going to make a difference. We know we also need to teach the adults in young people's lives, their parents, teachers, and coaches, how to spot warning signs so that they can help as well, because we're all in this together. So how will this program work? Well, it will start with training teachers and coaches. Thanks to the Patriots Foundation, 90 schools, free of charge, will be able to send teachers and coaches to regional trainings run by the Mentors in Violence Prevention Program, Dan's team at Northeastern University. MVP is a world-renowned program that we are lucky to have right here in Massachusetts. Those teachers and coaches are going to be given an in-depth curriculum on violence prevention, and the MVP program, while it's sports-themed and will employ former collegiate and professional athletes as trainers, will aim to reach all students. The coaches and teachers will then go back to their schools to train their students and their school personnel on what they've learned. Then they'll have the tools to implement a curriculum that year after year, which is important. We want this, and I know Mr. Kraft wants this to be something that is sustainable and lasting, so that year after year, curricula will be in place so that knowledge is passed on to incoming students. That alone will make a difference, but we're not stopping there, because we've heard repeatedly from experts in the field, like at Jane Doe, that to have an even greater impact, we should focus on doing more in-depth training in our schools for students, parents, and school personnel. So this Game Change program is going to select 30 schools from across this state, every region of the state, to partner with a local domestic violence and sexual violence prevention organization to help better educate school staff, coaches, and parents, and to be available for students and families that need help. And we know from our experience in this area that the need for help is great in our state. In each of these 30 schools, the MVP program will train students to become peer leaders. Those students will help teach younger students about healthy relationships and, importantly, bystander intervention. We know that on this issue, students listen to other students. And this Game Change program will empower young people to do just that. This partnership between schools, the MVP program, local anti-violence agencies is truly unique, one of a kind in this country. And we believe it will be enormously effective. All of this will be offered to schools for free through the $500,000 gift from the Patriots Foundation and $150,000 from my office, which will be contributing as well. Because one person harmed by relationship violence is too many. What you see today is teamwork. What you see today is partnership. What you see today is a collective commitment to say no more. No more violence, no more abuse. In Massachusetts, we're changing the game. That's the goal. I'm so honored to be here today with so many people committed to that cause. And of course, none of that would be possible were it not for Robert Kraft, the Kraft family, and the Patriots Foundation and their leadership.
The violent actions of an NFL player a year ago was caught on camera. The video went viral. It was a horrific incident and an incredibly negative story for the entire NFL. But as a result of that high-profile participant, the crime brought international attention to the topic of domestic violence. That level of attention, discussion, disgust, and outrage has been long overdue. I must admit, like many in America, I've learned a lot about domestic violence over the past year. The statistics are staggering. When you think about all the women in our lives, mothers, grandmothers, wives, aunts, sisters, daughters, girlfriends, it doesn't seem possible that on average, 1 in 3 women have faced some type of abuse in a relationship. The more you learn about domestic violence in our country, the more you want to do something to try to help. But individually, we often feel overwhelmed by the magnitude of the issue. If I have learned anything through my ownership of the New England Patriots, it's that you can accomplish so much more when you work together as a team, especially when that team is led by a great quarterback and head coach. Luckily, I'm joining a team effort in the fight against domestic violence that has tremendous leadership, provided by the likes of our quarterback, Maura Healey, and her aide, Joanna, who's, I think, Jimmy Garoppolo, tossing it back and forth. And we have a great head coach in Jane Doe, with the lifetime commitment of people like Mary Dunn and Malcolm Astley. And our MVP is the Mentors in Violence Prevention program through our good friend Dan Lebovitz and his team at Northeastern University. Together, we hope to champion an initiative that will be a game changer. Through education and peer mentoring at a young age, we hope to effect change before it becomes an issue, not after. We hope that the Patriots Partnership in this effort will help raise awareness and encourage young people to join our team in this battle against relationship violence. Thank you.
It's been touched on briefly by Mara and my dad, but living here in this great country, we're so lucky we can do whatever we want. Walk down the street, work where you want, live where you want, say what you want. And there's one overriding principle that makes that all possible, and that's safety and security. But as Attorney General Healey told us just before we came in, this office gets over 22,000 calls statewide from domestic violence calls. And I can guarantee you that none of those 22,000 people are enjoying the freedoms that that everyone in this room enjoys here in America. And to that end, as has been said already, my dad and the New England Patriots Charitable Foundation have made a commitment to fighting domestic violence and sexual abuse across the state. A $1.5 million commitment. We want to provide access to families and survivors of domestic violence. We want to provide organizational executive directors with tools to make their work even more impactful. We want to impact domestic violence and sexual assault programs at the grassroots level. And in the future, we want to prevent domestic violence and sexual assault from happening as much as it does. And we'll do that through this three-pronged approach that's been touched on already. Partnering with the Attorney General's Office and Game Change, the Patriots Anti-Violence Partnership will reach high schoolers across the state. With the Jane Doe Foundation, we'll help launch the Institute for Safety and Justice to train domestic violence executive directors as well across the state running programs. In addition, provide 5 catalyst gifts of $100,000 to grassroots domestic violence and sexual assault organizations to help them better serve their constituents. So again, thank you all for being here. And as my dad said, it's an honor to work with such great partners as Northeastern, the Attorney General's Office, Jane Doe, and so many other great people across the state.
A lot of hard acts to follow. I'd like to start by really thanking the Attorney General and Mr. Kraft for their tireless commitment to everything that we live for at the center. And before we got here, we were talking about how there are a lot of causes in the world, and there's a lot of people that are disenfranchised in the world. But what makes a cause move forward are change makers and champions. And those change makers you saw up here. The Attorney General has been unbelievable. The Kraft family has been a change maker not only in this arena, but in hundreds and hundreds of arenas. Malcolm Astley and Mary Dunn, I've met with them a number of times, and as a parent, I'm amazingly touched by their dignity, their forgiveness, their embracing of an issue. They're working for a legacy for their daughter. So I appreciate everybody that's in the room, because Jane Doe people every day are working on this issue. And yet, I really appreciate that someone took the cause, created a championship mentality around the cause, and created this event, which is really just a platform to move forward, to change people's lives, to touch people that feel like no one has remembered them, as Josh said so beautifully. So I thank everybody for coming to the event, and mostly I just feel as if, we at Northeastern and the Center for the Study of Sport, we've been in this space for 30 years. And for 30 years, we look for champions. Champions have stepped forward, and I think that as a community of this room and a community beyond this room, we should champion those champions. I see people in the press corps that have pushed this forward, this issue forward with such diligence and dignity, and I'm thankful for them as well. So thank you very much for having us here, and thank you very much for being here, and for actually putting a message out to everybody that needs to hear it about how great the Attorney General and the Kraft family have been, about how great Jane Doe has been, about the coalition, and about the dignity of parents that really embrace an issue because they've cared so deeply about their daughter and their daughter's legacy. Thank you.
Hi. Today we are changing the landscape in Massachusetts in the ways in which domestic and sexual violence are addressed. And the support and enormous boost in resources from Robert Kraft and the New England Patriots Charitable Foundation, these generous and unprecedented gifts will be transformative to the field and the lives of young people and will impact thousands. Robert, thank you very much. You and your own team have made dreams and ideas a reality. In taking this broad approach, you have made it very clear that domestic and sexual violence are everybody's business. This initiative is an amazing collaboration that we're so proud to be a part of. It represents government, the private sector, prevention programs, local domestic violence and sexual assault programs, and Jane Doe, Inc., the state coalition. This is a very proud moment in time, and I'm very touched and honored to be here and a part of it. We live in an era where finally these issues are being discussed. It is only when we end the silence and name it, and name the problem, that we can promote solutions, that we can begin to meaningfully address sexual and domestic violence. These issues are interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, and live in the realms of public health, social service, the legal community, education, social justice, and human rights. And in this work, we are both a field and a movement. And especially in this time of activism among young people in schools and on campuses, the Game Change program will change lives. Prevention of sexual and domestic violence is still an evolving field, and there's a lot to learn from it. However, we do know that effective prevention must meet young people where they are at, must focus on transforming social norms, and must be meaningful. It also must resonate with the diversity of our population, which includes an acknowledgement of the gender spectrum, of the needs of LGBTQ teens, immigrants, and those who are most marginalized and vulnerable. These generous and meaningful gifts will open up many new possibilities to create change, and it sets an example that will go well beyond what's going to happen here in the Commonwealth. This is really cutting edge today. In closing, I want to thank Robert Kraft from the depths of my heart and on behalf of our board, staff, and membership, the Patriots Charitable Foundation, and the Attorney General's office and your staff for your willingness to be bold and innovative, because that's what this represents. It's a pleasure to work with all of you, and we know that now we have some hard work ahead of us. But I also want to recognize and appreciate those who have experienced, witnessed, and lived with the impact of sexual and domestic violence, because that's why we're really here. Our work must be guided by your voices and your experiences, and we can never forget that. Thank you.
Our daughter Lauren's murder was tragic and horrible. It was on July 3rd, 2011, that she was beaten, strangled, and slashed to death by her former boyfriend. But what she stands for is far more tragic, horrible, and unjust. The grim arithmetic is that in our country, in our lifetimes, at the current murder rate of 3 to 4 women, girls and women a day, approximately 100,000 girls and women in our country will lose their lives in similar ways to how Lauren lost hers. The same number is the American soldiers who died in World War I. At least 43 more girls and women have lost their lives in Massachusetts at the hands of their partners, males by far, since Lauren's death. The murders will continue to take place in all geographic locations, among all ethnic groups, among all sexual orientations, and among all socioeconomic levels, unless we act as we are starting to do today. Countless more girls and women will face damaging experience of various kinds of abuse, including emotional, sexual, physical, verbal, cyber, and financial. 1 in 5 women will face sexual assault in college. That does not mean that girls and women are not violent, and we need to address that problem as well. But it is the boys and men who by far take the harm to a much harsher level and far too often lethal. In the still larger picture, we must also take on the even much larger challenge of boys and men's violence against other boys and men. We need to invite boys and men to join in bringing this violence to a halt, a violence left over from past historical eras and practices, and now in the way of our progress as a people and as a culture. We as a culture have brought so many forms of injustice and harm to a stop in our country, including first, monarchy and leadership exclusively by the male gender, slavery, the lack of women's right to vote, the weaknesses that surfaced in civil rights and women's rights in the workplace, the ignoring of those with special needs, and most recently, child abuse, though we have further to go. The point is, we've made so much progress toward caring and justice as a nation and a culture, and we can take this next important step now by asking boys and men to step forward to prevent boys and men's violence against girls and women and against other boys and men, and to insist that social, emotional skills in effective relationships and violence prevention be taught in our schools right alongside of anti-bullying work and rigorous academic skills. I point out that we in Massachusetts, about 20 years ago, finally recognized a problem that had been with us for nearly 100 years and insisted on seatbelts, preventing many injuries, much pain, and the loss of thousands of lives, and we saved money. Thanks for your commitment today in providing some social, emotional seatbelts to help our youth gain knowledge and skills to create effective relationships, to cope with breakups, one of the most traumatic, normal experiences all humans go through, to prevent violence, pain, and loss, and to build caring and justice, and to save money. Thank you.
Attorney General Healey, Mr. Kraft, and the Foundation. Today you put a public face and public priority to the issue of violence and the need to stop it. In communities of all kinds, families, sports teams, schools, and individual relationships, a culture of violence has become endemic. 3 women a day are killed by their partners. Lauren, at age 18, was murdered by her ex-boyfriend, a Wayland High School football star. She was my only child and one who made a difference in her short life. She played tennis and French horn. She sang beautifully, and she had a very special way of gathering people to her. It is breathtakingly hard to imagine what she might have become, something I do every day. While we've made steady progress through Lauren's Foundation on small fronts, your standing here today gives a serious boost to a cause and a daughter that we are thoroughly committed to. Thank you.
At this time, we'd be happy to take some questions.
Mr. Kraft, are you doing this, if you could step to the microphone, please. Are you doing this partly because the NFL has not done enough in this area?
We thought about what we wanted to do a year and a half ago, and we didn't want to make it look like we were reacting to that situation. We've put a lot of thought and energy and considered a number of different programs. We're very impressed with the Attorney General's program to start the prevention at a young age through good education. And one of our main things was we wanted our commitment to be something that would have lasting effect, and we felt that the Jane Doe group had a way, I look at it in a business way, like a holding company that could help to train and educate I believe there are roughly 70 or 80 different domestic violence groups, all of whom need help. And then we wanted to go on the ground to 5 specific groups that we picked out that we thought could make a difference. And we just don't want to do this and then walk away. This is a problem that's endemic to our society, and I think, as I said, the way the Attorney General's program work helps it. And then we think this is a great chance to see something good happen out in the field.
Do you think the NFL has done enough, though, so far to date?
Well, I think the NFL has done a number of positive things, many of which have not been mentioned. Probably none of us can do enough until this problem is eradicated. And I'll tell you the truth, I did not really realize how deep this problem was in society. I hadn't been exposed to it to the level. I'm just amazed, and I hope what we're doing collectively as a team here today can help to make a difference.
Thank you.
Attorney General, when would this program actually start? When does it officially get off the ground?
Well, right away. I mean, the Kraft family and their team and our team and the folks at Jane Doe have put considerable time into this the last several weeks, and we hope to be in a position to begin the outreach to schools, get the 90 schools in for the initial program, with work to follow getting the other 30 schools in shortly thereafter. So it will be this year, and it will go through 2015 and 2016. And Matt, this is, as Robert just said, the start of something. It's something that we intend to be self-sustaining and continuing. We think that that's the best way to change culture, change attitudes, and most importantly, have the impact with younger people, because we need to reach younger people. By the time problems show up in our offices or district attorney's offices, we're often too late. And the point of this, and I give huge credit to the Kraft family for their support and their willingness to partner to direct funds to young people, because through early intervention, through empowering young people, through giving them the tools and the resources that they need, I believe will make a significant difference in reducing relationship violence, sexual assault, sexual violence, and ultimately domestic violence.
How young do you think this program should start? Grade school?
Well, we're beginning this at the high school level. We'll begin at the high school level. We think that's appropriate. I think we'd encourage engagement and dialogue. I know Mary herself is a teacher, and from the time you enter school, it's important that you be taught things about how to work and engage and communicate with others and the like. But this is a program specifically designed for high school students.
What high schools have reached out to you? Have you reached out to high schools? Have you started that relationship already?
Well, we're in that process now. If you go to our website, you'll be able to see today that there is an opportunity for interested schools to apply for participation in this program. Our goal here collectively is that we have a program in place that is across all regions of this state, that covers rural, suburban, and urban, communities rich and poor, because we know that domestic violence and sexual assault knows no bounds. It is in every community, and that's why it's important that we have a program that has the ability to touch communities and families across the state. So we look forward, as I say, to undergoing that process and getting this program up and running through the good work of the folks at Northeastern as soon as possible. Terrific. Thank you very much for coming.